fourth way we communicate love is through acts of service. Jesus gave a simple but profound example of love by service when he washed the disciples' feet. And after that expression of love, he encouraged his disciples to follow his example. Galatians 5:13, through love, serve one another. Through love, serve one another. The neat thing about service-type activities is they require just a little bit of thought. It doesn't take much to do something for someone else. It requires a little time and a little energy, but other than that, there are plenty of things to do. If done with a good spirit, they express your love to the one whose love language is acts of service. And these acts can communicate in the same way that quality time on the couch does for the person who cherishes time, or words for the one who likes words of affirmation. Here's a couple of suggestions. Cut out some heart-shaped note cards and print the following on it. Today I will show my love for you by, and then fill in the blank. Could be something like cooking dinner, washing clothes, washing the car, mowing the yard. Give your spouse a little love note accompanied by that act of service every 3 days for a month. That's 10 times over the course of the month. And if you do that kind of little service, it will communicate to your spouse. Ask your spouse to make a list, secondly, of 10 things they would like for you to do over the next month. Have them prioritize the list, and then use that list to plan out your strategy of communicating love over the next month. They'll be impressed that you asked, and then they'll be impressed that you actually completed the list. And that brings me to the fifth and final love language, that of physical touch. Everyone knows that physical touch is a way of communicating emotional love. Hundreds of research projects in the area of child development have made that conclusion very clear. Children who are held, hugged, and kissed develop a healthier emotional life than those who were left alone for long periods of time. Romans 16:16 says, greet one another with a holy kiss. I said that was one of my favorite verses in high school. But it also works for married life too. Physical touch is a powerful vehicle for communicating marital love. Holding hands, kissing, embracing, sexual intercourse are all ways of communicating our emotional love to our spouses. And although physical touch is a must for all marriages, there are those for whom physical touch is a primary love language, and apart from that, they feel unloved. Sex is but one dialect in the physical touch love language, and at some point, I will actually take a couple of sermons and explore that topic a little more detailed. But let me just simply say here, it is but one of the ways in which physical touch communicates. Of the five senses, touching, unlike the other four, is not limited to any one area. There are tiny tactile receptors that are located all over our bodies. And when these receptors are touched or pressed, nerves carry impulses to the brain, and then our brain interprets these impulses. And just as touch interprets hot and cold, hard and soft, touch also interprets love or hostility. Physical touch can make or break a relationship. And to the person whose primary language is physical touch, the message will be far louder than words or gifts or time. And folks, what we know to be true of children, as I said, with hugs and kisses and being held, is true of adults. Holding hands, a back rub, just a simple touch as you pass by the couch where your spouse is sitting. It doesn't take a lot of extra time, but it can communicate love very loudly. So once you discover that physical touch is your spouse's primary love language, then you are limited only by your imagination as to how to express that love. So let me offer a couple of suggestions in terms of physical touch. First, walk up to your spouse and simply say, have I told you lately that I love you? take them in your arms and hold them. Rub their back, pat their back, and then leave. It's amazing what a simple hug and a simple pat on the back can do. If you're sitting in church together when the pastor says it's time to pray, reach over and take hold of your spouse's hand and just hold hands. You can hold hands in church. You can hold hands as you walk. You can hold hands at dinner. Simple little reminders of the love that we share. So there you have it. 5 ways we communicate love. Words of affirmation, quality time, gifts, service, and physical touch. Men and women truly do think differently. We act differently. The key is figuring out what language we're speaking. And a lot of us are speaking Greek. And a lot of us are hearing Greek. And so it's time that we learn a new language. The language that communicates love to those who are most important to us. So I'm going to give you a little quiz now and see if you can figure out what love language I'm talking about. And we'll use this as our closing part of the sermon. I do hope that you will come and be a part of the couples dinner. If you've not signed up, please call the church office tomorrow and make sure you do so. I also want to remind you tonight of our listening dinner. We're going to be doing that at 5 o'clock. Not couples, but literally all of us as we look to the future of Silver Street United Methodist and where God is trying to take us. So here's your quiz for our dismissal, and then I'm going to ask Chris and the praise team to come back. I'm going to use children as our example, and children will do all of these things at one time or another. But as good parents, if we watch and pay attention, we'll notice our children do 1 or 2 of these things more than others. And the same is true for spouses. All of us will do these things in different ways at different times, but if we're paying attention, we'll notice 1 or 2 of these that repeat themselves most often. So here we go. If your child runs in and wants to mess up your hair, their primary love language is probably what? Physical touch. If your child says something like, "You're the best daddy or mommy in the whole world," their primary love language is probably words of affirmation. If your little girl wants you to have tea with her, or your son wants you to help him with his baseball swing, then chances are their primary love language is that of quality time. If they like to bring you gifts, make you cards, then in all likelihood they're speaking the language of giving gifts. And if they are more inclined to want to help you do the dishes, mow the lawn, whatever it is, then their primary love language is probably what? Service. You see how if we just watch and pay attention, how easy it is to identify how people are communicating love to us? So I hope you'll learn to speak in a language that your spouse, your family, your friends can understand and know indeed that they